This is Henry Sanders back for another session of Real Talk here with Miss Renee Mo.
Hi.
Who I love. She's a good friend, and super Jason. And how's he doing?
He's doing great.
Yes?
Yeah, married 14 years as of December.
Has it been 14 years?
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Really?
Amazing. Feels like yesterday.
It does. Yeah. 14 years. 14. Look at you, still smiling. Look at it. It's still Well, that's awesome.
He's a great husband.
Jason's a good guy.
He's a
he's
good guy.
Sincerely a really good dude. Like and he's like a dude too. Like, so I like Super Jay. What's up, Jay? We should get together sometime, man.
You love that.
No, I don't. I love Jay. So, how are you doing, Miss United Way?
Doing great.
Yes.
There's so much going on. The work is inspiring. The people involved, the partners involved. Just, every day you get to wake up and work with the most extraordinary people trying to make the community better. I love it.
You've been, 5 years?
This is my going into my 5th year as CEO. Yeah.
Wow. How is it being a CEO? How does it feel to have all that power and all that prestige and CEO, like the clouds fill up, I'm a CEO.
Well, I don't think of it that way, right? I mean, I think that the role is really all about service to the community, and you're responsible for so many things. And, the cool thing about United Way is, when you're CEO at a place like United Way, it's about the community coming together, and you are really the person behind the scenes really lifting up, donors, volunteers, agency partners, and certainly empowering families who know exactly what they need and how they need it. And so to be at that convening point to listen and figure out where do we agree, what can we get done, that's a pretty cool gig. So, yeah.
You feel pressure? I mean, United Way is a big deal.
Yeah.
It has a huge implication on the rest of the county.
Yes.
People really depend on United Way. And you have to fundraise a lot of money every year.
That's right.
Do you feel the pressure of that? Do you feel like the weight of all that you have to do?
I mean, the weight and the responsibility is so important. And, we just had a conversation with our staff team about a month ago. And, what really came out of that was the decisions that the volunteers make, that we make, they really matter. I mean, the activities and actions that go on at United Way have true implications for what's happening out in the community. And so certainly the pressure of that responsibility is always at the forefront. Certainly, the ability to navigate change in the most effective way is so important. But you can't be overwhelmed by the responsibility because you got to do the work. So I certainly feel it. I certainly am accountable for it. I own it. And I know that it's because the power of working together, right? The power of many working for all is our tag. That's the responsibility. And that's what we need to do.
You have such a big heart. Yeah. So United Way is kind of a unique organization, right? It's different. How would you explain to someone that? How unique United Way is?
Yeah, it is a unique organization. I think that a lot of times people think that we are a fundraising organization. We distribute to a lot of agencies, or that we're a volunteer clearinghouse. But really, we're all those things, right? United Way is really the intersection where the community meets to affect change. I mean, that's how I think about it. United Way is how the community comes together to solve problems and address issues. So when you're looking at what does it take to really understand who do we want to be as a community, United Way helps to discern that by listening to the business community, by listening to governmental partners, certainly nonprofit expertise, and by going grassroots into communities to say, hey, how's your life going? What needs to change? We look at understanding how do things get to be the way they are, and we look to figure out how can we dream together to build a better future. And so that's the part that people don't necessarily understand, because we're trying to bring together all the different points of view to put together what's the true story, what's an evidence-based, research-based, database story that is informed by the heart and lived experience and the aspiration that we have of who we can be and what we want to be as a community. And then how do we actually put some strategies together and resource that with time and money and goodness and goodwill and, also some accountability, right? How do we say that the stuff we're going to get done actually changes over the course of going into the future? So that was a long answer, but it's really the place where the community comes together to solve problems. It's complex and yet as simple as that.
Every time I talk to you, with your team over there, I'm always shocked how much you guys do. And I still don't think I know everything that you do over at United Way. So just list 10 things that you guys do at United Way so people understand the stuff that you just 10
things that we do. Okay, I'm going to hold my fingers
10,
up so I can keep track.
Yes.
10 things. We mobilize the business community and employees in the workforce to be able to help them understand community issues and activate their caring. So giving, advocating, volunteering. We convene agencies across different interest groups to figure out how do we help families get resources across education, income, and health. So not just childcare over here, housing over here, but to do that more holistically. We fund programs that are able to help families, and whether it's tutoring programs or food pantries, all the way through case management services, the wide spectrum. So we fund programs. We have a 211 call center, which is the most comprehensive health and human service database across Dane County. We keep that, we're very disciplined about keeping that up to date. So when someone calls, they know where they can get resources. We are a volunteer clearinghouse. We have a volunteertime.org website where people can look to see which agencies want volunteers and to help get connected that way. We work with a business volunteer network to help employee groups do significant volunteerism in the community. We do a community volunteer awards event every year that celebrates and empowers volunteerism across Dane County. We focus in on telling the community stories, really understanding what does equity mean when you're looking at racial disparities, when you're looking at the opportunity for health and well-being and community wellness, looking at the data behind that as well as the story behind that so people can really internalize and see through other people's eyes if they don't have that experience. We do on-the-ground site visits to be able to go through what's happening with nonprofits, what's happening in businesses, what's happening in government, so people can see experiences that way. And I can say other things because there are like 20 more that I can name.
And this is my point, right? Like,
yeah.
If I asked like the average nonprofit person 10 things, they wouldn't be able to name 10 things that you're doing.
Oh, really? I could do 50 more.
And that's amazing. And like, you're doing so much.
But it's hard for people to understand that what's
so
the
much
value. Yeah.
And that's a good point. So that's a good transition.
Yeah.
So I know just when Michael went and worked for Cincinnati United Way and doing research in all the United Ways internationally, like, they're all like funding's coming down for United Ways across the country.
Yeah.
But yet you're doing all this work. So what do you do to deal with every region the economy's changing, how people are giving, but they still want the services everything United Way is doing? How do you convince them, or what's your sales pitch to say, nope, don't, like, we get the things are changing, but the needs haven't changed.
Right.
And if we're not doing it, who's doing it, right? I guess that's I would think. So how do you get over that hurdle?
Yeah. So there are a couple different questions inside of that. So first, I will say that the reason trends are down in terms of United Way support over the country is traditionally you've had large companies and you've had leadership to say, hey, we do United Way. Everyone get payroll deduction, and then we'll have lots of money, and then we can get distributed, right? So companies don't work that way anymore. Employees don't want to give that way anymore, and philanthropy has changed pretty dramatically, right? People want to see and touch and feel and engage with the work that they're supporting. So that's one reason in terms of why that's happening. The next reason is, what's the sales pitch? So the sales pitch has to start with, what difference do you want to make? And how do you want to be involved in changing your community? And then figuring out where's the match, right? And so you got to meet people where they are. And certainly for folks who want to get more involved, or who don't know they want to get involved, or don't know how to get involved, you got to really figure out what's their passion, what's their interest, what do they know, what don't they know, and figure out, where can they plug in. The third thing, which I think is really important, is what actually needs to get done in the community, right? Oftentimes what donors, what folks who care deeply about doing something, what they care about is that more tangible experience. What they care about is, what they can see and feel and touch, but oftentimes that isn't what families and what agencies and advocates who've been doing this work for a long time know is at the root cause of what needs to get changed. So we're managing all those three things. So, in terms of the sales pitch, we're evolving United Way pretty dramatically. Some would call it a transformation. I think sometimes that word is overused, but it is a transformation, right? How do we really understand by the stories, by the numbers, what's happening in Dane County? How do we understand stakeholders and their different points of view about what they think needs to happen and build that case? And then how do we mobilize to be able to get that done? All honoring and respecting people's self-interest, their corporate interests, their policy agendas. So it's that's the work of United Way, right? That's the sticky part. So while resources have declined across the country, certainly, we are doing our best work locally to make sure people understand what are the issues and to listen, where do you want to get involved, so that we can match those things up and actually grow, because we know those are the resources needed. One of our local volunteers, they're all local, but one of our volunteers said, we need to make sure that giving to pets and Humane Society isn't as important as housing, right? Now, I love the Humane Society, right? Love pets. We've got a great dog named Pickles. Did you know that? No. New puppy named Pickles. Aww. So, so love that, right? And that's really important, and it's a great agency, and those are great, important things to support. And when you're looking at what creates stability or instability or allows our community to thrive, we need more workforce housing. So how do we help tell that story? It's more complicated, harder to see and touch and feel, but to really help paint the picture of what it takes to get from here to there, that's really the work. And so we have to make that case that people understand where United Way can really help influence, and how we can help frame up what those issues are and how people can actually help support to drive that change forward.
Did you rehearse that answer?
No, of course not.
That was super good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was awesome.
I don't know. It's just how my brain
You might
works.
be the CEO or something.
I don't know. I would say that my team would probably say, fewer words, more concise, be more specific.
No,
so
be your authentic self.
This is.
So you got me in trouble, though, because my kids want a dog so bad.
Oh. Ours had to work 2 years to earn that puppy.
So bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. So my kids and Emily, they're going to watch this. And she has Pickles. So you just got me in trouble.
So here's what we did. So my daughter, Nora, so our dog, Roxy, died 2 years ago. Okay. And so they've been wanting a new pet since then. And, so much change and busy. And we missed her. And so I told Nora she had to write an essay. Why you want a dog, what it takes to take care of a dog, and a budget for a dog. So it took her a few months to sort of, okay, I'll write this down. And then we had to talk about responsibility, getting up in the morning, taking walks regularly, picking your stuff up off the floor, right, getting practice. And then the final hurdle was the whole family had to agree. And so Big Brother Nick was a little bit hesitant about a dog, but he came around, and then Jason got the dog like that.
Little sister,
warmed down, but it's worth it.
I mean, they can't pick them after themselves. Who's going to pick them after the dog?
Well, that's the part of the opportunity, right? It's to say, hey, to earn this privilege of having a puppy, you got to show you're responsible, picking up your stuff, cleaning your things.
Which is a good transition to this question I have for you. As a leader, what advice would you give me as a family man, you're a family woman, of how do you balance your family, your work, all the other things going on in your life? How do you, because, I know Super J, so you have the babies. Like, how would you give another leader advice to balance all those things and still be effective at your job and balancing your family life? Yeah.
So, I think balance is a tricky word, right? I mean, do you ever get true equilibrium? I really believe more in flow. And I think that flow. And sometimes work must take the priority because of the urgency of the issues that need to get addressed. But family always, obviously, you don't get family back. You don't get a second chance with family, right? So, what advice would I give? I think everyone's got to find their own way, but I would say you just get really clear in your values and your priorities. And, for me, I understand that, my family comes first. And I feel very personally responsible for all other families across Dane County, and whether that's fair or not, or true or not.
You do. I mean, she really does.
I really do. And, when we come into Dane County and there's a sign, I'm like, okay, I'm responsible now, right? I'm always responsible. But, it's true. So I would just say that, you've got to know in terms of, your time is finite, your energy. I'm lucky I have a lot of energy. But I think in terms of, where you need to really plan and act and recharge, I don't always take that time to recharge, but that's an important thing. So I think that in terms of advice, to say, figure out your priorities and then make sure you've got, decision points in terms of what needs to get done in your business and in your family and in your health and in your spirituality and other things to make sure that can all be in flow.
Yeah, it's always tough.
It's always tough.
I'm trying to balance that up. And the busier I get, it's even harder for that balance. The kids get older, so it's always So I'm always asking leaders, like, how do they do it?
Well, one thing I tell myself is, the babies are never littler than they are today.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
And
yeah.
so I remember the year Nick started kindergarten and spring break came at Mendota Elementary. Go Mendota! And we didn't take a spring break. And I was kind of running around, and there wasn't school, so here to there to there to there. And at the end of the week, I thought, why did I just have that stressful week? Why didn't I just take that week off and, enjoy that time? And then it kind of hit me, oh my gosh, you only get 13 of those spring breaks, right? 13. And everyone tells me it's actually more like 9 or 10 because as they get older, they don't really want to hang out with you. I don't know if that's true yet. I'll discover that. But, you just have to understand how precious that time is and really, maximize that, I guess. Because I don't want to miss out on that either.
Yeah, that's great advice. You should write a book or something about how to do all that stuff.
Oh, well, I don't know that I have any expertise in that.
You have a high demanding job. Like,
yeah.
As a woman, do you find it being challenging as a woman doing what you're doing? Like, obviously there's sexism, there's racism, there's all those isms. I know as a black man who's leading, I could give you a million stories of the impact of me being black, and good or bad, and there are challenges that there are to be a black leader in a visible way in the city of Madison, which I love, in the state of Wisconsin, which I love. But you're running United Way as a woman. Do you find challenges in that?
Sure, of course. I mean, I think that in terms of, power dynamics, in terms of people's expectations, in terms of, how you lead. So, yes, and you got to do the work, right? And I think that, I'm really focused in on, what can we get done? And, you said at the beginning, right? Be your authentic self, and you got to get stuff done. So if you can be kind and work with and through people and make progress, that's really where I stay focused. So do those things come in? Do people talk to me in different ways? Do they have higher, lower expectations? Do they make assumptions about personality or capability? Sure. And focus on getting the work done.
Right. Because you're a role model. You have to recognize that you're a role model for so many young ladies. Like, my daughters would see you and they say, oh, she's a CEO, I can do that. Like, older I get, I recognize how important it is. Having daughters, recognize how important for them to see women leading. So you have to understand the power that is at your position. Yeah. It's extremely important that what you're doing and doing it in such a graceful way, in such a big hearted way, and such a big job. I would never want that job. That's never. I would never. It's just so much, so demanding. Lastly, tell me the future of Madison. So you started in 2015, and now it's 2020.
Yeah.
What's the future of United Way in Madison moving forward?
Yeah. Well, how far into the future?
It's just so type A.
Because I have 100-year view.
Let's say 5 years. Let's say 5 years from now.
5 years.
Yes.
So a 5-year view of Madison United Way. So United Way is directly linked into the DNA of our community. I fully believe that. So I think there is becoming a raised, heightened consciousness about what equity means and about racial disparities and where that history has come from. I hear now more than ever before in my career people actively talking about and engaging in root causes, and not only root causes, but root causes of root causes. And so that, I think, allows us the opportunity to have bigger, broader conversations about where we are. I see the economy changing dramatically. So you see us moving from manufacturing to information, and now all the data services and technology growth that is changing the workforce very dramatically. That means we have some really important work to do in terms of workforce housing, in terms of transit. Certainly our schools and looking at what's happening for our kids is a really important thing. And you have a lot of leadership transitions, right? This year alone in Madison, superintendent, mayor, police chief. So looking at, as leaders sort of get more coalesced in terms of what needs to happen and creating that vision for where we need to go. And we need to get on the same page in terms of looking at the changing dynamics of our community, the population explosion, the changes in industry, what that means for workforce and stability. So, 5 years from now, I hope, as we've discussed many, many times, there is a more cohesive view of who we are. How do we get to, if this, I hope this is possible, one version of the truth. Who are we? Where do we want to be? Everyone's going to have a different perspective from, where they sit. But to really understand by the numbers, by the stories, who are we? Where are we at? Where have we come from? Where are we going? And then to let's actually make some things happen. I do think that we are of the size and scale, and we have the people with the compassion, with the resources, with the will to be able to say, what is it we need to do as individuals, as institutions, as systemic, societal, ether, to be able to make sure that more people get access and opportunity, and we have a chance to build an inclusive economy where everybody gets to grow and thrive, and where we have that sense of community, even as we grow, so that there really is that sense of how do we come together, united in a purpose greater than our individual interests, greater than our corporate interests, greater than the political interests, to figure out, respecting all people and getting to the point where people have access and opportunity. So, that's where we're trying to drive toward.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
You've thought that through.
Oh my gosh, every minute of every day. That's the, why do you do a job like this? You get access to resources and thinking that allows you to sort of paint that picture of, where we need to be. And then you get to, see the inspired people who are willing to roll up their sleeves to make it happen.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's so awesome.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're in the job. You have a big heart. We need people like you who actually care and are connected, meaning connected to all the dots, which a lot of times it matters when people are just one world.
Slivers, yeah.
And they don't know, but we need people who actually have the heart for the city and the county and who are connected, can connect the dots with people. And we don't do that well. We don't connect the dots very well in Madison. So when we have people like that, we have to embrace them and make sure they can do that job well. So is there anything else you want to say, Renee, before we leave, CEO?
Well, I would say that, if you don't see yourself in United Way, I'd ask you to look a little bit harder. I think that, whether it is involvement in volunteering, and volunteering doesn't just mean going to the food pantry. It means, what service do you give above your everyday expectation to help another person? Are you making a financial contribution? Are you giving according to your means, right? That's what we talk about. And are you learning enough about the issues? So, and some people are living the issues and they are true experts. But, we believe that if you know enough to care and care enough to act, United Way is a way to help mobilize you and to actually help get something done. Your point about the silos, and that's not the word you used, but in terms of, everyone sort of being in their own sliver or slice, I would say also look up from that too. And it's not about who gets the credit or who gets control. And we oftentimes are very concerned about who gets the money. And I think if we can look up to sort of say, what are the bigger picture things that need to happen, we can actually get more done together. So, thinking about that and how to engage in that.
That's great. Thank you for coming.
Of course, anytime.
And tell your family I said hello.
I will.
Tell Super J we have to get together.
He would love that.
Thank you for letting me have your wife for however long this is.
And love to Emily and your babies too.
Yes. Hey, babies.
Yeah, and maybe a puppy.
This interview is over. Cut.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you for coming. Thanks again for another Real Talk session. We'll see you next time.